morning again, everyone. Those in the room, those via Zoom and YouTube. To those in the room, please pay attention to the safety briefing.
Welcome to the audio-visual room, the National Library of Trinidad and Tobago. Please pay attention to the following safety briefing. In the event of an emergency or at the sound of the alarm, kindly proceed in an orderly fashion to the exits. The audio-visual room has 3 exits. 2 are located at the back of the room, 1 on the right and 1 on the left. The 3rd exit is located at the front of the room, at your left. Take a moment to locate the exits. Once out of the audio-visual room, kindly proceed up the stairs out of the building to our muster point situated at Woodford Square. Please note, you are not allowed to re-enter the building unless given clearance to do so by security personnel. Thank you. Do enjoy the program.
I wish to invite those in the room to stand for the national anthem of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you. Standing for the opening prayer by Messina, Librarian 3, ELSD, Educational Library Services Division. Shall we all bow? Almighty God, Father, and Creator of all things, I come to you today with a heart of thanksgiving, thanking you for this opportunity for a conversation with a minister to take place. As we commence this event, we ask for your guidance and wisdom. As your word says, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of you, who giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given. Father, in these challenging times, we recognize the need for your wisdom. So we ask, and as you said, it will be given. I also ask that you empower those with a responsibility to manage this organization. Give them strength to overcome these present economic hurdles, so that at the end they will be able to declare, like the psalmist David, by thee I have run through a troop, and by my God I have leaped over a wall. These things we ask with thanksgiving. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Mr. Please be seated. The Honorable Symon the Nobriga, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Communications, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Mr. Batman,
representing Ms. Jacqueline Charles, Permanent Secretary, Mr. Neil Parsonal, Chairman of the Board of NALIS, other members of the Board of NALIS, Ms. Paula Green, Executive Director, Acting NALIS, Ms. Beverly Williams, Deputy Executive Director, Acting NALIS, other members of the management team of NALIS, and other staff of NALIS, those in the room, and those who have joined us via Zoom and YouTube, staff of the Office of the Prime Minister Communications. Good morning, all. Welcome to Conversations with the Minister, hosted by the Honorable Symon Nobriga, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister Communications, Analysis Line Minister. Today's session is indeed to familiarize staff with the Honorable Minister's objectives for government communications for 2022. So after this, we will take, after the Minister's presentation, we will take questions from our staff, those in the room, those via Zoom, as well as those via YouTube, those on our online chat. You can please type your questions in the chat, as well as those via YouTube. You can also type your questions. So now I invite our Chairman of the Board of NALIS to bring us opening remarks.
Honorable Minister, PS, Deputy PS in the Ministry, colleagues of NALIS, the management team. I see Kathy and Townsend, our director, one of our directors in the audience, as well as some other directors who are looking on and participating via the various social media platforms. Staff of NALIS, this is a very opportune time for us to gather, but also to hear from the Minister himself exactly what the priorities are, what his concerns, what the mission is for the ministry and his own division, as well as, and more specifically, for NALIS. We have not had, as NALIS, we have not had a staff meeting for a little while where we gather the whole staff together. So this is another opportunity for the staff to really ask their questions as well and to get the answers directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Not that I'm quoting the minister, but directly from the one who manages us. Conversations like these are extremely important, and I really want to impress on the audience, impress on the staff in particular, to utilize the opportunity that you've been given. Sometimes you hear from the management team, and you might not totally understand or totally accept what it is being said or what is coming down the pipeline, so to speak. And the management team could only do so much. It is important now that we have the minister who directs and who gives direction to NALIS, and who I take my direction from as chairman. It's important that as he is here, for you to be able to hear from him as well, and to be able to engage. And that's the reason why he's here. I want to thank the Honorable Minister, because this exercise of conversations with the minister is not something that ministers engage in very lightly. Because you never could tell who's sitting on the audience. You never could tell who's going to come at you with some kind of curveball of a question, and really you open yourself to any kind of direction that the conversation will go in. And so I really want to thank the minister first for his bravery in not just having this one, but he's had a number of them before. So that he continues to have these conversations is testimony to his bravery. So I really want to applaud him for that. And really, give him our support, to give him my support. I previously sat in his chair, so I understand to some degree what it is that he's experiencing. So I really want to encourage all of us to lend total support. He has the support of myself as chairman, and he has the total support of the board in the management of this exercise. So on that note, Minister, DPS, welcome, and let's get the show on the road.
Thank you very much, Chairman. At this point, I'm going to invite DPS background to introduce our minister.
Thank you. Good morning, Minister. In the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for communication, the Honorable Symon Nobriga, Chairman of the Board of NALIS, Mr. Neil Parsonlal, Executive Director, Ms. Paula Green, colleagues. On behalf of the Permanent Secretary of the Office of the Prime Minister Communications, Ms. Jacqueline Charles, who is unable to attend this morning, I wish to extend warm greetings to each and every one of you. Firstly, before we get into the business of the day, I would like to take this opportunity to commend you at NALIS for your hard work, notwithstanding the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and other constraints that I know you may be facing. Today, this forum, as I said before this morning, is arranged to afford the minister, our minister, the opportunity to share his vision for the communications arm of the Office of the Prime Minister, and for you to share very openly your ideas, views, and whatever opinions you may have. So without further ado, let us welcome Minister, the Honorable Symon Nobriga.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's not very often one walks down the stairs to the rostrum. Once again, Nalis is doing it differently. I don't need to be Nalis camp. Chairman, Executive Director, Deputy Executive Director, members of the executive team, management staff joining us both in person and on your various platforms. Congratulations for that as well. I think this is the first time I have had multiple platforms being utilized for this initiative. And thank you for welcoming me. Chairman, I've been told before I have a long face, but I have never been told I had a horse's mouth. So I hear the introductions, and I have been hearing these introductions. As Chairman is very correct, this is something that I have initiated, and it's going to be an ongoing activity that I will have for all the divisions and agencies under the purview of the Office of the Prime Minister Communications for as long as I have the portfolio. And I keep hearing that I am here to share my vision with you. That is not entirely true. In many ways, what I'm trying to ascertain is what your feelings are on the ground. Very often, see me as we have some training issues, and you tell me. I was going to tell you. You should do it. Very often, when you sit in this position, and I'm sure you are well aware, very often you can get isolated, not by your own wants or desires, but because the office is an isolating office. Any office like this is isolating. So it's important that make the effort to calm down, to understand not just what the issues are, but very often the solution to the issues sit in the room. And it is critical for me. It's always been my management side in the private sector, and it's about time I roll that out into my management side as a minister. To understand what the thoughts, what the issues, what the desires of the people under my charge, if we want to use that as a very broad term. What those are, and that assists me in ensuring that the strategic direction is not just an academic process, but it's intuitive and it's emotive, and I understand the feelings of the people on the ground. And you're also very correct. I didn't realize it was an active break before I started it. Because of course there are genuine issues, and that is also good to hear. It is good to hear those issues. But before we get into those issues, there are things that I want to congratulate you all on. I've been in the portfolio 18 months of that. And when I started, I was very focused on the, I suppose, the forward-facing side of the communications ministry, and that really was internal. It was really about infodem, and it was really about government communications and trying to ensure that we had a mechanism to speak about the successes of the government as a whole. Very often, people don't understand that whole of government narrative. I've always taken particular, or always paid, I think, particular attention to NALIS from my first visit to NALIS. I felt a connection, even though you have some of your management team who insist on supporting All Stars. But thank you. But even in spite of that, I still feel a connection, an emotional connection to NALIS. And it, in many ways, I think, harkens back to my own childhood, the important role that the public library played in my own childhood as a child of TN Tech. My grandfather, my grandmother, my mother worked at TN Tech. And very often on afternoons, during holidays, I would find myself down in the public library. And so my love for reading started there, and I think my appreciation for the library, and which then morphed into the entity of NALIS. I have an emotional connection, and I've been having a series of conversations with the key stakeholders in my ministry about what is the value and what is the responsibility of government communications. And of course, I'm using that as a broad rubric under which NALIS is a key functionary. And that value and that responsibility is really about what this country looks like in 10 years, and in 20 years, and in 30 years. It's not necessarily now. I mean, of course, we do have an immediate impact, but very rarely do you find yourself as an organization having a direct impact on the mindset of the population, and I suppose in creating that future state that we all hope for. I think it was I'm trying to remember where it was. If you remember, I can't remember. I was talking about one of the events that we were at. I was talking about what is he, especially in this digital world, what is the role of a library? More and more people are being driven to the online space. What is the role of the library? Tell you what the role of the library is and why it's so important. When we renamed the reading room at the National Heritage Library, the Heritage Library, the Ed2 Pearl Springer reading room, what we were doing was creating a space for future generations to understand the impact that people have, to understand stories that are created, the threads that weave through all of us, those threads of people, the impact that Ed2 would have had on the individual person, but also on the national narrative around topics that can be very controversial, very uncomfortable for some people, especially from a different generation. Libraries more and more are not just places where books exist, but they are spaces of learning and of sharing and of creativity and of this sort of was like a melting pot. I have a genuine emotional attachment to this organization because I see you as so integral. I see us as so integral to the development of this nation. I think that is apparent to your chairman and to your executive team. I hope it is. I hope that you'll see, and I hope that the staff understands that sometimes decisions are made and things might be hard, releases are sent on time and whatnot. But understand that through the operational hardships, you have a minister that truly values the role that you're playing, not just as a component of his ministry, but in a nation that I hope to build for my children. I see you as, it's not a footnote, but you're a driving force, you're a key component of that narrative. It is the reason why when we went to Mearu last week, when we went to Mearu, I was so happy to see that we are back on track. Because you will have a community and a catchment area in our conversations there. I didn't realize 18 months later, it only then dawned on me exactly how broad that catchment area was. Mearu, Choir, Rio Claro, Ottawa, Manzanilla. There's so many young minds to mold, so many young minds to open up, so many young minds that we can impact to become critical thinkers. And it goes beyond politics, that goes beyond the sitting government. That's the future of the nation. You don't know the person who gets the young boy or girl that gets to avail themselves of the services inside that library. What impact that person is going to have on this nation, on this region, on this world. It's the reason why I'm so excited for us to partner with the Ministry of Digital Transformation on our co-location project. Because it means that we can get into more and more isolated communities. We can drive, hopefully, if we as we leverage our relationships with the other ministries as well, we can utilize the services of the library to also drive young people into the community centers and avail themselves of all the myriad services, programs that exist in those community centers. But very often, they don't go to see as a simple service like Wi-Fi. Imagine a simple service like Wi-Fi could be the catalyst for that simple yet most profound change. I know I passed here on an evening and see the line up outside, you swear you can balance here. It is why I am driven to for us to have the refurbishment project running anyway, that I hope we will, and we get into all these libraries that need to be fixed, that need a spruce up, they need an infrastructural improvement so that we create spaces of comfort. I know I keep stressing on the young, but of course it's not just the young. But I suppose as a parent, I can't help but think of my 15-year-old and my 11-year-old, and where I was at their age, where I am now, and undoubtedly what library services in this country would have done to help form that person, for good or for bad. You all will tell me, I suppose, in 2025. But that is I suppose, if I have to look in a very broad sense, and this individual conversation is not going to be in time. every quarter I want to do this. Every quarter I want to ensure that you get to understand me a little more, and I get to learn about you as individuals a little more. Because you are all part of this organism. You're all organs and blood vessels and part of this integral parts of this organism. Doesn't exist without you. In the same way, a library is not walls or the books, it is the spirit. So after all of that, I've come now off of my soapbox, and now is where the two-way street of communication starts. I have told you a little bit about what the way I see NALIS's role. I hope in saying that you all will get some insight into who I am as a person. Now I want to hear from you all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I turn over to you. Chairman, you want me to stay here or you want to go there? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Minister. So now it's your opportunity, those in the room, those via Zoom, as well as YouTube, to ask your respectful questions. What should I say about that respectfully? So the floor is open to those in the room. Like, I'm just going to move this. You can see Minister. This would only reach about here.
There's no light on the subject.
Yeah. They'll have to find it.
Have you all met Andy? Have you all met Andy?
So
After all that, I thought you was going to answer a question.
So the floor is open. We have Jason McCannell assisting us, so he's also going to read questions placed in chat.
Or start normally tries to open the party. Minister, welcome to that table. I just like to really, first of all, let me thank you very much, Minister, for in your tenure, pushing the envelope about getting libraries open. Because as you said, Miaro is on track. We have others, we have video managing, we have Law Ketter, we have Shabona, so a lot of those that we need to really put, because we have the same issue that the catchment is an excellent catchment. And we need to find a way to develop it. But I also want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is funding. And when we look at those big projects, it's a lot of funding, can't need $42 million easy. We have to be looking at how do we keep the libraries that we have existing afloat. I think you mentioned it in terms of repairs of the libraries. That's a struggle. As a project manager, as a facility manager, you're just out in fires. We're not getting a chance to put preventive maintenance structures in place because we don't have the funding structured in that way to be able to have, anytime the library goes down for air conditioning, we displace and dispromote young, old staff, you name it. And it just says that I know we are struggling into the funds. We have to find a mechanism that allows us to get those funds to maintain the existing library that we have, notwithstanding looking at the Miaro that is out because we took one and the library. I think it's not as essential, it's imperative. The other point I wanted to make is we have a major challenge in this lovely building called National Library Building. We are in debt. We are in hock. I think the executive read ED I think she came to our room to the various floors and I had trying to get a little funding to be able to keep the evaluation running. Thank you. But it's not enough. We need to make a serious intervention because London Street again, we paid some funds, but we are now on the dire straits again. Any minute they will be coming asking us which service to downgrade elevators, AC, and my issue is the risk health and safety risk. Because a fire would require all of the additional components, water, automatic doors and gates. It demands a lot of it. So we can't afford for the service to go down because of lack of funds. Who owns the public bank? Oh, it's okay, yeah. Government is not real. Just checking. But I want to say that we need to find a mechanism because I believe in quick fire time, they're coming again to give us. It's dire straits. The last time they gave us a deadline of a month and they will be downgrading the services to a halt because they were stopping to pay the contractors. So I just want to make sure that people understand the dynamic that the stresses that the media and the chairman they have in managing those engagements because it's right. I'm the lower end of the scale, so I don't get that very much like those. Yeah.
Still running.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that, but again, I want to thank you for being here, and this is an excellent initiative that we can actually table a lot of the issues that we have prevalent to the organization. If you're interested in organization, and you so rightly said, it really is the future of the youth, the elderly, and on the various platforms have an opportunity to make a major difference. We just have to handle the back end of the stuff, which is just the maintenance, the structures. We need to be able to do that. Yeah. I want to thank you.
If I could just briefly touch on that. One, two, to tell you it's not lost on me. I understand, and it is why when the initial issue came to the fore, when it was brought to my attention, maybe I shouldn't say that I was give the impression that it was only brought to my attention once, because that is also not the truth. When it became critical, let us say, I reached out to London Street. I would have reached out to Minister of Finance, and we addressed the issue even as a stopgap measure. The issue has been one that has built to this stage, and in the same way that it built over time. I wish it could get fixed overnight, but I don't think it can. It is going to be some communication. So I will be speaking, and we are working to find a solution to this issue. With regards to public libraries around the country, I suppose I spent enough time in the private sector that even I have issues sitting on this side of it with the lack of effort that we put into maintenance across the board. And very often the investment falls by the wayside. That is not my focus in any way. I think that especially when you have to eat little and live long, what you have to do is to fix what you have. So while we are looking at new libraries, focus really needs to be on the existing libraries. In many ways, this is a OJT job, you're living on the job. So the priorities become clearer and clearer as you go along. As you spend more time in the role, you understand fundamentally where the gaps need to be closed, but that could only be done in doing the job. You don't walk into the understanding. And this is not to say that the ED or the chairman have not expressed all these issues to me, but it also has to be part of your lived experience in the position. So as I live it, I understand more and more. So the maintenance is going to be a focus of mine going forward. Please do very well.
Hi, good morning. Minister, from the people on Zoom. This question comes from Caesar. Communication is one of the 4 main levers of government alongside legislation, regulation, and taxation, according to the UK government communication service. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement?
I think that communication is a key function in any organization. I think that communication as that two-way street that I spoke about is a key function, and government is not exempt from that. I think that the method of communication sometimes differs based on policy. I think that very often communications, very often people see communications through their own lens, through the lens of their own experiences, and may not always appreciate how collaborative communication needs to be. Yeah. And if I were to bring it back to where we are now, this process is a fundamental part of communication. How do you know what to speak to if you don't hear what people have to say? It is my position that it starts here. It doesn't start with me telling you, it starts with me listening. So the easy answer is yes, and but stretched out a little bit.
Good morning to all. Minister, Council. I'm Ron Thomas' name, Director of Human Resources, NARIS. I just want to say, it is a way to look at NARIS, the authority, to look at our history, to look at our foundation, to even look at the way we are structured. We are almost everywhere, in government ministries, in schools. When I say government ministries, of course, for example, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Social Development, in secondary schools and primary schools, and throughout in Tobago. The last 2 years certainly has taught us a lot. But one thing I can say, as HR, we have professional staff, we are resilient, we are committed to the cause, and we look forward to moving in a positive way. Notwithstanding the challenges, because we do have a lot. And I'm also sure that, one of the persons may speak about the industry of salaries and things like that. I'll leave that up to the staff. At the end of the day, we continue to pivot notwithstanding the challenges. And, I just want to indicate to you, Minister, that we want to thank you for the opportunity, and we look forward to moving forward as an organization. We have a lot to offer. We're going to continue to do so, and we will work notwithstanding. I can say that you will have persons who, of course, will have their challenges, but of knowledge, the management team tries its utmost to provide that support. We have engaged, about communication, we have engaged in our initiative where we are meeting with some virtually every month to discuss issues, giving them that opportunity to indicate some of the issues or some recommendations that they may have. So we have continued, we have had about 9 or 10 sessions, and we continue to do so. So we agree that communication is important, and we're going to continue to do our part with understanding the challenges. I thank you. Minister, before someone else comes, I just want to read a question that we got in before. And this person says, goals are encouraged to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Smart. The question is, focusing just on the S and M, which means specific and measurable, what specific roles and activities would the government would like to see from 1, public libraries, and 2, school libraries? And how would the success of these roles and activities be measured?
Wow, that is a very very wide-ranging but yet very specific question. I suppose and this is not to come out or to duck the question in any way, but I think that in itself is really about the vision of the board, the vision of the management of NALIS. I think that particularly with libraries, there is no timeline because it is an ongoing activity. You are not bound by any specific timeline, except to say that, and I think the chairman and the ED in particular can be out with this, that I have become very, very focused on timelines when it comes to our development plan to ensure that we get the projects that we have on the books, off the books, in a timely fashion, so that we can get new projects done. So it is why I was very to hear. What was it, end of May? I think was the timeline for Miaro for the base building. End of May, yeah. May did, yeah. And he said no. He said that was a public holiday, so that would be next week. I'm very focused on that when it comes on timelines. When we speak about those. When we speak about those types of initiatives, in terms of the impact of libraries, or the vision or the focus for libraries, I think in many ways I tried to address that in my opening remarks. That I see the libraries almost as timelines. That we may find ourselves in particular spaces in time, but as we change the library space, that library forms an integral part of a community, of the country, each library itself. As far as the role of libraries in schools, as somebody who did not visit the library in school very often, except when I was trying to get out of a class, I can tell you now that I wish that I had the appreciation that I have now. I wish I had it then. I think the Minister of Education is best placed to speak about where she sees libraries in terms of our overall vision for education. But the librarian in particular have a key role. Again, without a timeline, that is ongoing, that should live in perpetuity. Yeah. So.
All right, Minister, we have another question. From Zoom, Janessa Roberts. Good day. You mentioned the Miaro Public Library. Any future plans for the Togo Public Library? Our catchment area is quite large.
Yes. The chairman and I and the executive team have had numerous conversations. I have had numerous conversations with the MP for Togo Sanigradi on it. We have visited the site. It is my hope that, and I think this is what has, well, it is not the only reason. In fact, this is that we have issues in terms of funding, and that is a reality. I mean, it is a lived reality right now. It is also why I am so driven to get off the books so that we can start to focus on other projects. But it is my hope that we bring the ball a little bit when it comes to Togo, that we look at a different type of library, different type of structure, one that embraces not just the reality of that community, but also what the future for Togo has. It is my hope that we are able to utilize whatever technology that we can to make that structure a green structure, the one that becomes part of the environment as opposed to one that stands out in it. We have had numerous conversations on that. Was there a line item? There was a line item in this budget for it, yes. There was a line item in this budget for it. And I think that will really, I'm hoping to just the Minister of Finance in the next month or two to get some additional funding for us to move forward on that project as well. But it does require, I suppose, agreement on what it will look like, what that structure will be. And I think we are still working through that. But there are plans afoot. We started that conversation in the last fiscal, continued in this fiscal. I do believe, however, that it's important to finish projects, even more so than it is to start projects. And I'm very focused on finishing one project, getting that on, and then systematically moving through, bringing them on and moving through libraries in that way. I don't believe in just loading up our DP with a whole bunch of libraries that we say we're going to start, and then, as in the case of Mayor Rohan and Sugar, your libraries and projects that have gone on for how long? Yeah. 10 years. Yeah. If you come to do a spoken word, this is very hard.
No spoken word. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning.
Effective. So you said something very interesting in the beginning, which is about, my name is Captain Symon, I'm of the Heritage Library. So I have a new hat. You spoke about what is the value and responsibility, and I put knowledge inside it. And knowledge is a trait. Knowledge is a vibrant organization. Knowledge has skilled and passionate staff that through 2 years of pandemic and ongoing have never failed to deliver. In one fell swoop, created over 20-something Facebook pages and was online to help students and the rest of the people. They just have a people, that we, as a management team, we would like to deliver, we would like to achieve. And this is some of the things that, this is about 5 points I have, that this team of passionate people, 117 online, have been able to deliver. Trailblazers with TTP, Transmittal Blind Welfare, where we are serving individuals in the community. Recently signed in with people to gain access to resources specifically for the visual impaired. Hundreds, thousands of resources. recently turning books to audio access. At least 5 books so that they could get access. We are in underserved community. Recently moving out from San Fernando and me building and going to another building where we can continue to provide that access to the city of San Fernando. I saw someone ask on the chat when we get to public Friday in San Fernando, and I want to tell them coming soon. Before the end of the year, providing digital resources to the LSD, creating videos for the Telecommunications Authority in Pennsylvania, creating videos on television with MOE, and yet we have not skipped a beat. Linking with leaders to provide that science and technology information for students, agreeing for them to set up small exhibits of science in schools and in public libraries, so we continue to believe forward. Linking with people like White to provide even greater access to information, soon coming for a vast majority of individuals, people who are unemployed, retrenched, those who have come out from prison system. This is knowledge. And yet, I say again, we do it all with passion and pride, and we do it consistently. And I want to applaud this morning the staff of knowledge working beyond. And hence I come back to what Mr. Fagaro was saying earlier. That's why we need the funding. To do what we have to do in this digital age, we need the funding. We are trying hard to get the thousands and thousands of information of Prime Minister collections online through our information network division. That needs scanners, computers, up-to-date equipment to make it happen, and we cannot do it alone. We really need that.
So if I could just touch on that a little bit. Firstly, I want to tell you that was very spoken with us. I want to tell you. All right. Yeah, 619. Anyway, I'm constantly blown away by the dedication of the staff of that. That is a reality. Most recently, again in reality. And the dedication and dedication and passion and stuff always comes through. Anytime we have a conversation, always comes through. And that is clearly a cultural thing in this organization, because even when we had the event by N2, when you hear the wave, you include the judgment, you'll speak about influence that N2 and others would have had through it. Clearly, it's built a culture in this organization. And that is critical. And that is critical for success. It is also critical to get through lean times, which is a reality of where we are. You spoke about White, and I just also wanted to touch on that a little bit, because it is, as part of our whole of government approach, even in my own ministry, it is my intention to speak with Minister Cummings about all his residential and non-residential those projects that he has, to get NALIS involved, because these young men and women that we are actively trying to impact positively need access to information. They need that. Very often they need that more than anything else. They need that space to allow their creativity to blossom, to allow thought to stop them, I suppose, defining themselves by walls by which that surround them, to live in other spaces. And so it is critical. I think that's a critical function, and it is my intention to speak with him. In fact, I've already spoken with him on it, and that what we need to do is to solidify the locations agreed to now between ourselves and digital transformation, and then access some of his funding to get us into those spaces. I don't want to impact our projects by trying to spread ourselves too thin. So that is a commitment that I can give to you, that I'm working to do that. And hopefully it will be this fiscal, and if not, then next fiscal. I just wanted to touch on that. The funding issue is a reality. It is not a comfortable conversation. It is not a comfortable space to exist in. It's not something that I'm accustomed to. But it is a reality. And I have every week at cabinet level, we have a conversation with the Minister of Finance, who is working to stretch a dollar across all ministries. It is not to downgrade the importance of NALIS in any way whatsoever, but there are realities to ensuring that teachers get paid and doctors get paid, and very often it is about keeping the lights on and keeping salaries paid. And there are harsh decisions that the Minister of Finance has to make. Understand it is not made. Sometimes people feel that you can make those decisions easily.
I would like to know from the ministerial portfolio or government perspective, as you've asked us as citizens to tighten our belts over the past couple of years, we see that human resource is one of the most valuable in this organization of knowledge, right? And our human resource analysis is of such high extent that even our HR director has just stood for us. And I felt moved by that, okay? So with our talents, I'm wondering, would the government see it beneficial in your terms as a minister to hire more staff like ourselves to expand our services into secondary schools, because my experience over the past 5 or 6 years at Nobriga has taught me that for one student enter with a high level of literacy, especially in that rural area that I've been working in. So I would like the government and the Ministry of Communication to, and I'm going to give you a little insight of a Vision 2020 plan of having a national Wi-Fi system of 2 megabits. So that was then. I mean, now we're not going to survive with 2 megabits, but maybe if we could just go back to that Vision 2020, where now this is also so part of that plan is to roll out that information system where we use the library to communicate with citizenry. All right, so that's one question. Now let me go on to the other. My colleagues would like to know about those who have taken the COSTAF degrees and so on, what would be their status. And also I've heard, again, from back to the tightening of the government, we had cut scholarships. I myself was an applicant to a scholarship from us, but due to funding constraints, those scholarships have been cut as well. Seeing that we are in a better position in IT infrastructure, I would like to know if you would like to approach UE, as in UE Jamaica, to have a sort of collaboration so that scholarships and professionals like myself can move up from library assistant to into librarian and so on. Thank you very much, everyone.
So, let's see with first one first. It is funny. Yeah? I remember when we were speaking about Vision 2020, and of course the fact that many intervening reasons that was not achieved. Sometimes you think that things happen for a reason. The last 2 years has taught me so much in terms of how fluid the reality that we live in is. So as you speak about hiring more staff, there will be another argument to say that as we move into more and more of a digital space, that in the same way I could sit here and speak to, I suppose, when you add up everyone, 200 people through the use of technology, is there a space for that? The ongoing needs of the organization are the responsibility at the end of the day of the management, and they will make the requisite I suppose arguments to me if these things need to be looked at in the same way that we are looking at what the staffing of InfoDev looks like and what the staffing of government print really looks like, not just because of the organization itself, but because the organization doesn't exist in a vacuum. That the reality of the times that we live in directly impacted. So I suppose if it is the short answer is if it is required, then yes. But of course, that is also impacted by the reality, and I keep coming back to it, And it is just that the reality of, do we have the funding at this point to do that? In terms of the furtherance of your qualifications, the truth is I don't have the answer to that at this point. I note it, and I don't know if the operational table can speak to it, but I would be very interested to hear.
All right, Sai, thank you for that question. With regard to you have two questions, one relating to FOSTA and the other relating to scholarship. With regard to FOSTA, we would have spoken recently with Dr. Jillian Paul, the outgoing president of FOSTA, right? With regard to the degree program. Now we have been looking very, very closely at the degree program, and now because we know that their business analysis would have done both the associate degree and the bachelor's degree program. So we had a very fruitful meeting maybe about a month ago, where we are looking to finalize all elements of that particular program so that we can onboard those persons who have done the FOSTA degree. We've asked us as well for analysts to be a part of the advisory committee, actively a part of the advisory committee, not only for the current program, but also for any of the different professional development areas that we would need to consider going forward, right? So we are actively pursuing that initiative so that we can get our persons on board. I did ask for a listing from the director of HR as to the persons who are already qualified, right? So that we can now, once we have finalized all arrangements with FOSTA, we can now bring those persons on board, right? So that's in the pipeline right now. With regard to the scholarship, we did have I guess you and Director HR, you can perhaps help us out here with regard to the scholarship. We would have had a scholarship. We have some scholarships in abeyance, which we have not been able to offer yet. But before the director actually speaks to them, one of the things that we've been doing recently is having more communication with Muna, Jamaica, not specifically with regard to the scholarship, but looking at the programs and things like that, and encouraging persons to apply for the degree program, the Master's in Library and Information Science at Muna, because it's an excellent program based on what I've seen. A large component of that particular program is also online, because I know persons who have done that degree program, who are doing the degree program right now, who are based in Trinidad. It is my intention, and I would have discussed this with other members of the management team, is to have closer conversations with Mona with regard to that program, especially the areas where we have identified a need in that is not really specific to the current Mona program. And I can say, even before having that conversation, Mona, one of the areas that we're looking at is preservation and conservation, where there's a significant need for training in this region. For that, given that now is also the regional tax center for the IFMA preservation and conservation now. So those are some of the conversations that we will be having with Mona, and I will hand you over to the director HR to speak more to the scholarship program.
Thank you very much, Ms. Green. I just want to add with respect to the first question. Remember that well, to start with respect to persons who would have completed the program and persons who are also studying with Mona. So we can have a comprehensive list as to the persons who we have to look forward to complete the program. With respect to the scholarship program, approximately 12 years ago, the government of the Republic would have agreed to offering scholarships to persons who are employed specifically by analysts and who would have had the requirement as library assistants and would have good for a number of years to qualify for scholarship. Those were 250 scholarships. To date, we have offered 180. That's 70 that is currently outstanding. In 2017, we were asked by Cabinet for a comprehensive evaluation to be done on the scholarship program, which analysts would have provided. To date, we have not received any feedback with respect to what is the current status of those scholarships. As Ms. Green has indicated, we do have other options now locally, COSTA, and we have, of course, Jamaica. Because previously, when the scholarships offered, we would have looked at Aberystwyth and Syracuse. So certainly we are moving forward, and once we can, of course, we do have the funding to engage persons, we do have the vacant positions at Liberia. We would certainly do so once we have gone through the required documents and information.
Can I say that I would have visited National Archives yesterday, and this was also raised in terms of their own conservation and that those skill sets that they see a real need for it. So clearly this is something that is needed.
All right. All right, we have another question from Zoom, from Dane. We are inquiring about salaries for the period 2013 to 15. Staff is disenchanted. Any information will be appreciated.
So I could pretend I didn't hear any question. The short answer, I don't have an answer for that. I didn't come with information to answer it, but I will speak with Edie and with Chair and the Senior Director, which I was rushed to my defense.
Okay, so we would have completed the compensation proposal, which is currently with the Chief Personnel Officer for the period 2013 to 15. We are waiting those approvals. So we have been communicating with staff. We have been liaising with the CPO to find out what is the status. I know also through the JCC, the union, they have been liaising as well. So certainly now it's sort of done its part with respect to providing the information to the CPO. So we await any further, if there's any request from the CPO, and we look forward to that approval. Because certainly we in 2021, 2022, and so we're looking at 3 negotiating periods that will be outstanding. We are actually meeting with the PSA very soon with respect to the counter proposal for the collective agreement for the period 2016 to 19. So we look forward to any feedback that we can get regarding that.
I hope Dean is okay with that answer.
Hope so. All right, we have another question from YouTube, from Debbie Murray. When will the Chaguanas Library be completed? The structure is an amazing one. It is needed in the Chaguanas community. The building, when finished, can also be a means to generate revenue for NALIS.
Absolutely correct. My focus was to get, of the 2 projects that had been delayed for as long as they had been, those extended projects, my focus was to get Mayaro completed because it was the easiest one to complete. I believe Chaguanas, in terms of our base buildings, maybe about 60% complete. So that, yeah. Whereas Mayaro was close to 80, 85, I think somewhere around there. So that was our focus. She's absolutely correct. Debbie's absolutely correct. That the Chaguanas as a structure does have the ability, as does Mayaro, to be not just a building for library services, but also an income generator, which will impact maintenance issues and all these things. However, what I will tell you is, having visited that site, I think twice, having visited that site twice, there are deficiencies in terms of the planning. They have a huge building with no parking, none. There is that building, which I know has very much like Mayaro, but the same but different. It does have a very tangled past. Let's use that. It has been with NALIS, taken away from NALIS, given back to NALIS, and all these things. We have tried to find solutions to utilize that building in the most efficient manner. The planning for that still goes on while we do try to get Mayaro off the books. Chaguanas, however, once Mayaro is dealt with, Chaguanas needs to be addressed and will be addressed. So, but I very much any questions before in terms of the smart approach to projects. I cannot give a definitive timeline for that right now because the focus, at least my focus, was to get Miro off our books. And once we get that off, both from a funding perspective as well as time, resources, and all these things will be focused on Chaguanas. What goes on right now is trying to figure out how to best use that building, the commercial side of it, and what else do we need to do in order to make the building, I suppose the most effective that building can be. And right now it is not there. It is not. It just simply isn't.
All right, we have another question from Zoom. Sando Library. How can the government improve communication and relationships between different ministries and the Special Libraries Division at NALIS? There are issues of proper working conditions, financing, and written agreements between ministries.
That's a very broad statement. I don't understand what the actual issue is. But I see the operative table. What's the job then?
One of the things that we are looking at the Special Libraries Department, is really looking at the cohesive plan for the Special Libraries across the board. Now, Special Libraries is currently a division. We have about 48 libraries in that particular division for all of the government ministries and departments and such like. One of the issues that we have is disparate information systems to manage the staff and different terms and conditions. So I want to say operations based on the relevant ministry, because not every ministry's structure may be the same as it relates to library. So we are actively looking at streamlining and restructuring across the board, all of the divisions and others. I would have spoken to the DB because the special libraries fall under her portfolio. But to now look to see how we can now streamline the services of special libraries across the board. We are also looking at the possibility also of a one library management system across the government service, right, that can manage libraries in the special libraries, and a similar initiative we are looking for secondary schools. But for some of those are some of the discussions that we're having in terms of trying to see how we can now make the terms and conditions of operations in those locations, cohesive across the board. Now, I know the person may have been looking more so even in terms of staffing. So one of what we would have done over time is really look at the different locations where there are issues in some locations. Those are normally brought to our attention so that we can address as much as we can. But at the end of the day, we are a service provider in a government ministry, and we work for a client at the end of the day. So there has been discussions in many different areas where there are inequities or deficiencies in the infrastructure. Now it's no we come in and have a conversation. So if perhaps we may have missed a location where we did not get a report and there would have been issues, it's certain under the staff bring it to our attention so that we can intervene.
Well, the final question is from YouTube. What is being done to equip our libraries and staff with resources, human, digital, and otherwise, to carry us through and beyond digital transformation?
That's a wide-ranging. That question has a very wide-ranging answer. Digital transformation has taken a very fundamental role in terms of IT projects across all ministries, and we have not been exempt from that. I have tried to engage digital transformation, the Ministry of Digital Transformation now, to be a part of ongoing conversations around all projects that would fall under their purview, and it has been a revelation to them in the same way from a communication standpoint, how very siloed ministries and agencies and divisions can be with communications that exists in the digital, the IT, in the IT projects as well. So even in my own ministry, I have seen cases where we have multiple projects that are basically the same thing, being conducted across various agencies and divisions of OPM communications that are not benefiting from the economies of scale that would be afforded to them if it were to be looked at as a holistic project, not benefiting from the skill sets that exist in Ministry of Digital Transformation. I tend to get long-winded, guys, so I apologize. Back on track with the actual question. Every year there's going to be a conversation before budget. Yeah, every year, and that conversation is going to be around what additional project do we need to add to our toolkit, right? How do we further embrace digital transformation? How do we further embrace technological advancement? How do we further embrace whatever changes in the environment that there are through our TP project? And those things would include the conversation we had around improving the equipment that you have. It would include conversations that we have around improving our storage capabilities. It will include conversations that we have around, and these are ongoing. These are happening I can tell you in my ministry, every 2 weeks I have a meeting with my PS and my project manager that focuses on our projects. Where are we in terms of our deliverables and in terms of our timelines, achieving our milestones, all of these things. So I know that there are at least 3 or 4 projects that are on our both our IDF and our consolidated fund listings for projects within NALIS. A lot of it is actually focused really on our storage capability and improving our IT structure or IT infrastructure. That is the only place that we can start, because everything that we do going forward needs to sit on that spine, on ensuring that our IT infrastructure is solid, our infrastructure here, but also at all our libraries throughout the country. And that is one of the projects that sits on the books this year, right? And it is getting all of my attention, right? So that is an ongoing process. The environment, and I suppose what we should also say is that these projects are not 1-year projects. Very often they are 2 and 3 year projects. And a big focus, as I've said before, for me, is to ensure that we do not have project creep, but we do not have projects that live on and on and on, that we get through it, we get it done, and we move on. All right? I hope that answers the question. I hope it does.
All right, we just have 2 more questions. And it was supposed to be the final. Question from Arima Public Library is, tell us about yourself, primary school, secondary school, favorite library memories.
Don't answer that one yet. Don't answer that one yet. The pension question, just take that one.
All right.
Yeah, you think I'm gonna end on a high note before? We'll see.
Okay, the other one is from Dardine again. With respect to analysis, pension plan, any updates how the funds are doing? For example, is it making a profit or loss by RBTT? We know there's a shortfall of funds by the government subvention every year. This question is for management.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. Okay, we do have a pension fund management committee made up of executive management members and staff representatives, and we meet on a monthly basis or as and when necessary. Ms. Dalit is correct. For the last 3 to 5 years, I know Mr. Alexis would agree here, we have had, I think, a $5 million shortfall with respect to the pension fund plan. The investment manager is First Citizen Asset Management. We have the trustee as RBC, and we have Baker Woodruff D'Souza as the actuaries for the plan. Every 3 years, we have this evaluation done, giving us an idea as to exactly where the fund is. And we are currently in a deficit. The next evaluation is due this year, I believe, with respect to the actual valuation. And just to mention with respect to, we did look at some options with respect to looking at some of the things that we can do that is a little bit out of the box, because we do get from the investment manager on a quarterly basis as to exactly what's happening with the fund. And in discussing with the stakeholders, and with the RBC, FCAM, and the actuaries, we are seeing that pension funds generally are not doing as well as they should. We know that we have restrictions with respect to international investment. Recently, the central bank did increase from 20 to 30% of the fund. I think the fund is close to 200 million, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Alexis can correct me. And certainly, we do have some of the funds in fixed deposits, which of course not making anything much. So we are trying our best and looking for options outside of the traditional ways of investing the fund. So that's what I would want to say with respect to the pension. But if I can just go back a bit as far as, and it's going to tie into this as well to an extent. From a strategic perspective, two of our themes that is just organizational sustainability and financial development and viability. I know, Minister, when you started, you spoke about the fact that you're a businessman and you're bringing some of your experience into the public sector as it would. I know that we would have submitted a PSIP, Strategic Business Unit. HR would have spent some time, of course, Edie would tell you, as far as working on that document. The question is really, yes, we are aware, as per the NALIS Act 18 of 1998, as Ms. Williams would tell you, we are supposed to provide that support from a service point of view. But what is stopping us from coming out of that thing in that box as far as why can't we have an arm where we are invested, where the government can invest? Because as indicated originally when I spoke, when we look at our foundation, when we look at the fact that we have 300 plus professionals who are competent, who has the capacity to provide support, not just from a service point of view, but also for us to be financially viable. Why can't we engage with the private sector, the banks, the oil companies, with respect to providing that support, whether it's digitization, whether it's ensuring that we have their databases that people, when information is digitized, then you can have that information in a readable format. Because that's why librarians, that's science in the libraries, they have that competence. So I'm asking, because I remember when we had, recently we would have had to submit the projections for the next year. And I did ask Edie and Edie, what is happening with the strategic business unit? What is happening with that business arm of NALIS? What are we doing? So we can be a little bit more sustainable with respect from a financial point of view, from a revenue generation point of view. Why can't we look at what we can achieve financially, targeting the private sector in the sense of what's the services that we can offer, where we can earn revenue. So when I say this to say, we have heard a lot with respect to Mr. Figueroa spoke about we need the money, Mr. Symon spoke about we need the money. Government can do as much as government can do, and there are priorities. Health, we know those areas are priority right now. So the government will give whatever they can give, but at the end of the day, as NALIS, because of how we are structured and what we can do as per the Act, I think that we can do more to be a little more self-sufficient. So it's important I think there's a need for that whole strategic business unit to be relooked in a serious way to see exactly what can be done for us to be able to earn a little more. On the note of the pension plan, as indicated, $200 million sitting in FCB. Of course, they're doing whatever they think is correct to do with that funding. and the returns are not what we would like. But at the end of the day, we can look at some options as to, which is a little bit non-traditional, as to how we can invest some of those, that fund, some of it, where we can have greater returns. So I just wanted to add that.
Can I tell you that that I have absolutely no issue with any of you just said. That we've had conversations, and at a fundamental level, I support completely that strategic business unit. I think that we need to look at the reason why it has not been approved by planning as a project, right? And some of that may simply lie in the justifications. Some of it may simply lie in where the projections, what are the projections based on? Are they numbers? Are they, can we show a solid business case for it, knowing what the business is out there, what the value of the business is out there, what would be required to achieve that business, and how we'll go about getting it. From my experience in private sector, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but I can tell you that I do think that if we do, you want to deal with that question?
Sorry, that's my son.
Oh, no, I understand completely. But from it is not unachievable. I think that it will add real value to the organization. We are in March now, so let's look at it. Let's look at it in terms of what I think will be required to make it a successful project in terms of the justification, but that has to be backed by numbers. That's just the reality of it. It has to be backed by numbers that can be interrogated and that will stand up to scrutiny. And I think that is where we need to focus. Once we do that, I don't see the project as being unachievable.
Somebody wants to know what primary school you went to, what secondary school, and to provide your best lively memories.
I went to St. Monica's Preparatory School. It used to be at the top of Pembroke Street. It is now a car park for what is that quality? That building that Home Mortgage Bank and all those places are in. From there, I went to Fatima College. I mean, a proud Fatima boy. Of course, Fatima, being in the environs of Woodbrook, I am of course drawn to the greatest steel band ever. Phase 2. I am a Woodbrook boy. I represent at a parliamentary level. I'm the representative of the Martin Central, but I lived in Woodbrook for the vast majority of my life, and my family is a Woodbrook family. So moving going to Fatima was my uncles on my mother's side. My father was a St. Mary's boy, right? And of course, yeah, but he got one. My younger brother went to Saints. But of course, being a level-headed family, it was never put on the table that QRC would be an option. I know they may very well use some QRC online that was simply for Mr. Figaro, right? In terms of my favorite library memories, it is not a single memory. I cannot tell you how many times my son is 11, and just the thought of the fact that I was 11 and leaving Park Street and walking down to the times really have changed. But at his age, I would have been walking down the street. My mother would have given me a path. You have to walk down here and you turn there and you go down. But it was a fundamental part of my childhood. The public library was a fundamental part of my childhood. I mean, I can still remember those long bench seats that you start upstairs in the children's section, upstairs and to the north. That was a fundamental part. I mean, picking up books, Enid Blyton and just we're not Hardy Boys. They used to get Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, but those were fundamental a fundamental part of my upbringing. I had a used I have to admit, read voraciously, and I really think that was a big part of it. Going down to get my library card was a big thing, you know. And in many ways, it was an escape, you know. Growing up in the 80s and even the 90s, you can't just spend money willy-nilly. That is just what it was. The library was free. So you had an opportunity to get there, to spend the evening there. Of course, before the time of cell phone, so you better be aware of what the time is, because when 4 o'clock reached, my mother told me to leave the commission, right? But that is where you sort of defined your days by when you went out to the library. You was kind of went to the office with mom in the morning. At lunchtime, after lunch, you were allowed to go down to the library, and then around 3:45, you have to head back up the road. So it is not any singular memory. It is really, I suppose, just the feel, the memory of the bench, the seats, the smell of the books, looking to see how many people have read that book before you, the librarian shushing you and those kind of things. But that is, if I have to tell you, it is that. It is the feel of the library, I suppose, but the public library.
So thank you very much, Minister. Let's just give Mr. Minister we enjoyed the time spent with him. And Minister, just to let you know, we had people from Cedar Online, Williamsville, Barataria Community Library, various divisions and departments within this building. We had people from Miaro Online. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I know we're still creating those types of memories for young children. We just don't say shush anymore, but we're still creating those wonderful memories for young children who come to the library. I know Ms. Prasad said she wanted to ask a question, but we're kind of running out of time. Minister, would you allow her to?
I am at your pleasure today.
10 seconds. Yes. Minister has to go to another entity. Just.
Yes.
Good morning.
Right.
Always save the best for last. All right, good morning to the PS, good morning to my executive director, and good morning to my chair, good morning to all. I am Primiti Prasad, the educational director, the director for Educational Library Services Division, responsible for managing all the secondary and primary school libraries. It's a big division, it's the largest division that I'm proud to be holding this portfolio for, and it represents 67% of the workforce of NALIS. And Educational Library Services Division is mandated to contribute to the learning process, to support the school's curriculum, and to assist with the holistic development of students. And I would like to know this morning, what can you do on your end to get the Ministry of Education to better understand the importance of a school library, that it must be a priority in every secondary and primary school. I would appreciate that. Whatever you can do on your end in speaking with the Ministry of Education so that they can better understand it. Thank you.
So let me tell you that I don't think that is from a minister to minister, in a minister to minister conversation, that is a conversation that I have to have. Both Minister Gatsby Dolly and Minister Morris Julian have both come from a teaching background. I have never heard them say in any forum that we've been in the conversation that in any way to devalue the importance of a library. And I think as a teacher, they would understand fundamentally how important that is. I will raise it. It seems to be an issue, and if it warrants a wider conversation, then that is fine. Just can't have it right now, but I'll be here again in 3 months. But of course, I will raise it with them to see if there is an issue, as you have alluded to, and to raise it with them as something they need to look at. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. San. Thank you again. I just want Ms. Green to give some closing remarks, some thank yous. You can sit there or you can do this from home.
All right. Right. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Minister being here today to have this conversation. I'd like to turn of the conversation, which is, as you said, not so much your vision, but your opportunity to hear from other staff and our opportunity to speak to you so that you can get a better sense of who we are as an organization, who we are as a body corporate, who we are as people and citizens who are, and I've been said it rightly, who are passionate about Trinidad and Tobago and all that is Trinidad and Tobago, who are passionate about communication. Right, and being able within our environment to be able to communicate information, to be able to communicate library services to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, one, to visitors to Trinidad and Tobago, to the foreign diaspora, the case may be. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity, Minister, and your team, members of the NALIS staff. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to all of the questions today, but for raising their questions, raising their issues, so that you get a better sense of who we are.
Great question.
Yeah. we are a very complex organization serving so many different teams. There's so many different cultures. You mentioned there's a culture within us. There's a culture, but there's several subcultures throughout the organizations as well, and as a team, and I'm talking management, board, executive, now the Ministry of Communication. Holistically, we manage and to ensure that we build that team in a positive way. So I have to thank you and your team for coming to us, coming on the ground to NALIS, because that's where you really know and see who we are as an organization, and it also allows us, based on that last question, to see who you are as a minister charged with this awesome responsibility of managing NALIS. Right, so thank you again. Thank you to the staff. We are very appreciative to the business who are here in the room, the business who are online, from Cedros to Togo. I'm taking it from one end of the country. Tobago, yes, of course. We have a contingent in Tobago. Thank you to every single system in NALIS, 700 strong, I like to call our team, for being a part of this conversation. And we hope that the conversation continues, and that we are able to touch on more of the questions that are coming to us for your attention. Right, so thank you again, thank you Chairman, thank you everyone today for being a part of this initiative.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of this morning session, and we hope to see Minister in 3 months, Minister.
Every quarter.
So we hope to see Minister again. So thank you for your participation. Thank you to those who are online via Zoom as well, and for those who are via YouTube.
Good job.